I have here a fun and fairly short project from last weekend. I'm not sure exactly what you'd call it, some sort of light box of a mountain scene with some different lighting patterns. It turned out pretty cool, in my very biased opinion. And before you ask, yes, I'm going to change the corner screws to black ones. They're just not here yet. It's made of some laser cut wood layers with some spacers in between to let the light through from underneath, and acrylic on the outside layers. So here's how it was done. I started with this picture I took hiking. It needs to be a picture that has some sort of depth to it, where there's some good cut points, especially if there's kind of foreground and then various background pieces. So after loading the picture into Inkscape, I made this spacer layer first, sort of as the template, and this is just a couple rectangles, and then the screw holes. For the corner circles, I just made the circles, and then you can, under object properties, make sure that it's a pure circle by the radius. And then if you move it, you can see the position up here, X and Y. So, I just used where the corners were, plus adding this or subtracting the same amount on all four corners to make sure that they are symmetrical. So once the spacer layer is ready, I can duplicate that a bunch of times to make all my layers and rename each one. So then we can just show one layer at a time, show the image, show, let's say, layer 1. I just took the pen tool, make sure the layer selected you're working on, and then just traced along the thing. It doesn't have to be perfect, obviously, because it's going to be cut kind of small, but just go along whatever. So just pretend that's done correctly. The next step is to finish the rectangle on the removed section, so the top section. And there's a way to split paths, but it's a little annoying, so I just retraced it because it's pretty quick anyway. So just retrace it real quick, and then delete the original rectangle. So now your layer is done for that piece. Then I'll just repeat for each layer, show the next one, do the next one, so on and so forth. So another special layer is going to be the front and the back piece. And so I duplicated the spacer again, and then essentially it'll just be wider on the left, right, and top by a fixed amount. Using these tools up here, obviously just hand doing it would be a little rough. And on the bottom by a decent chunk to leave some space for the LEDs. So the last special layer is the texture layer, you might call it, where the wood burning will go. So what we'll do is we'll take an outer rectangle, and just to crop this image, duplicate this rectangle. I'm going to drag it into the image layer, hide this one. So now I just have the image in a rectangle, and then select them, and under Object, Clip, Set Clip, it will clip it. So there's that. And then if you right click on the image, you can say Crop Image to Clip. That way it gets rid of virtually the stuff around it you didn't need. Now when you right click on the image, there's a trace bitmap option, and one of the modes is edge detection. You can play with this threshold to kind of see what it would look like. Since this is making a bunch of paths, you don't want to get too carried away with detail, otherwise it will be impossible to etch or will take forever. So you just pick whatever spot seems best, apply. It'll take a minute. So there's that layer. I've switched back to the real project with the actual tracings to show the export step. So now we'll just turn off every single layer except for one, and then go File, Save a Copy, and then pick the type as DXF. When this second window comes up, make sure to select Visible Only so that it doesn't try to export every layer, but just the one you're showing. Hit OK. And then it will do that, and then just go on down a list and do the rest one at a time. Optionally, you can open the DXF in a CAD software just to make sure the right thing is exported. And it is. It looks fine. This layer is correct. Next is the actual cutting step. I like to cut on cardstock first just to test it, make sure everything looks right, and also to pick the scale, and see what size would make a good use of material. In this case, I found that at 55% scale, I could get 6 pieces onto one 12 by 12 inch piece of wood, which worked out pretty well. After also cutting the front and back acrylic pieces, I checked the stack up and it looked pretty good. Next, I picked a position to do the etching over the already cut pieces, and I loaded the etch into the program, and then after testing the etch speed to make sure it was good for etching, I just reload that same file and delete the parts that weren't relevant to a given layer, and then run it over that piece. On the spacer pieces, the bottom has to be cut out so that the light can get up through. This could be incorporated into the design, but I decided not to do that by forgetting. Next, I found an appropriate bolt size and started to bolt it all together. Once all the layers were stacked, I could check the final depth and use that to know what the size of the rectangle should be for the left, right, top, and bottom. So the plan to get the lighting into the layers is fairly simple. You have a Neopixel strip here. This could be cut to pretty much whatever number of LEDs you want to drive. And so what I'm thinking is to take this piece of wood that'll go in here, cut 2 rows, put them on one side, and then on the other side put this AT Tiny controller to drive it. And then just wire in this USB cord to power it and call it good. Here's a diagram of the whopping 5 wires required. So pause now if you want it. So the next step is to just wire everything together. Make sure on the Neopixel strips for the 2 sections to follow the arrows around the corner. They have a certain direction they're supposed to go. Even though it's not many wires, it's actually kind of tedious to solder to those Neopixel strips, but it goes pretty fast if you speed up the footage like I did. So I ended up just hot gluing the LEDs and the board to this thing, which is admittedly kind of crude, but since it can't be seen, it doesn't really matter all that much. So now it just needs to be put in there and then put the sides on. I use little wood spacers to make sure that the side and top pieces are against the outside, but nothing holds them on other than just the compression of the screws. The LED board underneath is glued in to stay in place. The program itself I linked in the description, but it's fairly simple. It just picks from a few different patterns and displays it on power up. I also did put in a program for a button, but I haven't installed one yet, and the button would just make it show a random pattern. Separately, Adafruit has a lot of really good tutorials on Neopixels if you want to look at those. Well, if anyone made it to the end of the video, I'll be a little surprised. But glad you watched, hope you liked it, and hope you're inspired to go create something.